I think that the most common language is Globish. Do you agree? Well, there will be some people who will be speaking remotely on the language, but well, this is Europe. I'll try to make a revival of my past time as president of the parliament. We were not so many. And well, we opened the debate on the Ventone Manifesto, a new take to a federal Europe, a meeting, well, among federalists and among European citizens. I do think that first and foremost, we must well, give our support. It was made in the European Parliament yesterday. Yeah, to brave people who wants to be European and is fighting for it. I think that we must pay homage to the Ukrainian people, and I'll be very short because there are plenty of people who are on the list to speak. I'll try to apply the rules of the European Parliament. 5 minutes. I regret I don't have a hammer, but try to have discipline. I will only make an opening comment. The question is not to pay homage to the people who made the Ventotene Manifesto. They were devoted and progressive Europeans avant la lettre, and they were doing it when they were in prison, and they were during the Second World War, and they did work and look to the future. That looked utopia at that time, a crazy utopia. Yeah. Well, Europeans, they did begin to change their history after the war. I do think that it's important to remember that well, some of the people who drafted the manifesto, namely Ursula Hirschman and Altiero Spinelli, they were in the Congress of the European Movement of '48, and the debate on how we were trying to build Europe well, began among Europeans at that time. It was the first opportunity for the Germans to participate with the others. This is a very important historical fact. And well, I'm not going to speak about my life, but I had the honor and the possibility of being president of the parliament in '89, in the period that is known as the falling of the Berlin Wall. It was the end of the division of the world and the terror balance. There are some people, especially one, that they have not accepted that this belongs to history. And well, not only the people who are now in the European Union, that we are building a federal Europe, is no more a dream. Is, I think, half of the house has already been built. And common citizenship and common currency are important parts of it, but most important are the values that we share and the destiny. And this is what many people who are Europeans with us, they they have this view of history. And I think that Ukraine is the best example. People who are ready not only to debate, but to fight and to suffer, to risk their lives. So I do think that it's very timely. You know that there is a manifesto that is related with the conference of the future of Europe. I do think that, well, we must not redraft the manifesto after the last events. We must reinforce it. And then I do think that we must not only make a domestic debate. We must take into account that we are living a major leap forward, to say it with Robert Schuman. And so, dans l'inconnu, but it's not an unknown. We have made we have built most of the building, and we must pursue and work all together in order to get a truly federal Europe. So I'll try to discipline our comments to 5 minutes. I have been given 10, but I do think that there is still some room free. And and now, Guy Verhofstadt is coming, but he's not still here. Now we are with the first panel. Yeah. I'll give the floor first to Domenic Ridevesa. You know that, well, he's a dear friend, a member of a distinguished member, an active member of the European Parliament, and is the SD spokesperson in the AFCO committee and member of the Conference on the Future of Europe, and a very active member of the Spinelli Group. Well, you have the floor. Domenic. Next.
We have also Danuta Hübner remotely. Thank you very much, President Baron, for being here with us, for presenting and moderating. Thank you as well to the National Press Club for hosting us in this hybrid format. I'm very glad to see 50 people in the room and also 100 people connected. So this new take on the Ventone Manifesto is generating some interest. So thank you for coming, and also to all our participants today, the ones that are here in the room already: Daniel Freund, President of the Spinelli Group, Luca Vicentini, Head of the European Trade Unions, and the others that are connected, as I said, Danuta Hübner, and those that will speak in the second panel. So my role in this first intervention, first and only intervention, is just to explain to you the motivation of this exercise to update the Ventone Manifesto. This probably is in itself quite maybe a curious thing to do. Why are we doing this? The Manifesto of Ventone, which was written in 1941, had a very powerful idea, which was the critique of the absolute sovereignty of the nation states, and a solution to this diagnosis, which was the European Federation, in a nutshell. And we, members of the Spinelli Group in particular, but not only, consider that this vision is still valid today. And with this exercise of updating it to our times, we are indeed trying to keeping it alive, to keep projecting it and making it usable in the context of the Conference of the Future of Europe and what will come after this exercise, which we hope is a new treaty, a constitutional treaty, a federal treaty. There are three main elements in this draft that we are presenting today. I think some copies have distributed. If not, it's publicly accessible in the platform of the Conference for the Future of Europe. The first element is identifying which of the proposals of the Ventone Manifesto, because the Ventone Manifesto, as I said, has this diagnosis, which is very current, as I said, the question of sovereignty, but also has a program. And some of the elements of this program have been completed. Let's think of the single market or the common currency. But there are others that are pending, and we want to highlight that. And one of the things that is pending, and this is also particularly relevant in the context that we are living today, is the single foreign and defense policy. This was already a proposal of the manifesto. The second dimension of this draft is projecting the vision of the federal vision of the manifesto to the transnational challenges that we're facing today and that were not part of the discussion at the time of the elaboration, the writing of the 1941 manifesto. Let's think of climate change, for instance, which is also a purely transnational phenomenon that requires a federal solution. And by a federal solution, what do we mean? We need to apply a supranational democratic governance to the management of a public or a public good or a public bad. Let's think of pandemics, another very good example of a transnational phenomenon that requires this kind of governance. Let's think of migration. Let's of also to some extent social inequalities. So all these matters, particularly the ones that I mentioned at the beginning, climate change, pandemics, migrations, also digitalization, clearly a very clear transnational phenomenon. All those challenges, for obvious historical circumstances, of course, were not part of the discussion in 1941. So we are projecting or applying the federal thinking to these ideas, to these topics. But also we have back in the table the question of war. Of course, this was part of the discussion in 1941. And interestingly, war is also a transnational phenomenon. Is the violation of a border, is the invasion of a country. And the European project had precisely the purpose of ensuring peace in Europe. And it has ensured it for those that are member states, of course. So one way of bringing peace to other countries is incorporating them in the Union. Not for nothing, President Zelensky was calling yesterday in the European Parliament for joining our Union. But we can also bring peace outside our borders by projecting our values, by projecting our power, and projecting also our force, as we have been doing now, or we have done with the European Peace Facility by providing support, yes, to the Ukrainian armed forces. But for that, we need a foreign policy and defense union to do that. If the pandemic has delivered the health and the financial union with the recovery plan, it is very clear that the invasion of Ukraine has to deliver this foreign policy and security union. And I conclude. The third element of this draft is global governance. The manifesto said that the European Federation was the first step towards a world federation. And the question of democratic global governance is back in the table again. If we think, for instance, how Russia vetoed the resolution of the United Nations Security Council on the invasion of Ukraine. This shouldn't happen in a real democratic supranational governance beyond Europe. So these are the three main elements of this draft. Now, this draft is displayed publicly for all of you to contribute. We want all of you to be protagonists of this exercise. And once we have gathered all the inputs, we will launch it in a final version in the island of Ventone after the summer. So this is it. Long live a free, democratic European Ukraine.
Thank you, Dominic. Now I'm going to give the floor to a dear friend, Danuta Hubner, who is with us. You know, Danuta is a distinguished member of the European Parliament, is member of the EPP in the AFCO committee, and member of the Conference on the Future of Europe, and the devoted European. The floor is yours, Danuta.
Muchas gracias, Enrique. Espero que se pueda oírme. Good evening, colleagues and friends. I appreciate very much the possibility of talking to you actually this way. And I would like to start by saying that when Ventone Manifesto became the program of the Movimento Federalista Europeo, integrated Europe was nothing but a dream. And Enrique said it was utopia, but then he said it was a dream. I think it was a dream. And today we have behind us 65 years of functioning European integration. And those of us who love Europe as our home know the weaknesses and lacking elements of this project. Were there errors committed and what I would call wrong mistakes made? Yes, there were many of them, but we also know the value of what has been achieved, and we know that there is no alternative to an integrated Europe. And I see the goal of the new manifesto in giving a new impulse to making Europe, both its system and its infrastructure, fit for the future. And we might have different interpretation and assessment of decisions made by our fathers and grandfathers, which shaped the first 65 years of integrating Europe. And I believe the great value of our manifesto, crucial to its meaning, is that we invite to the table all who would be willing to be our allies in pursuing for our European goals, even if sometimes they have traveled different roads. And we should also underline how much we achieved in that time interval between the two manifestos, between the rise of Europe from the ashes of the war to creating a peaceful community of nations. And when European integration had begun, Spain, Portugal, and entire Central Europe were on the other bank of the river with their dictatorships, non-democratic political systems, and non-market economies. But the European door was kept ajar till their own fight for democracy made their accession possible. And I think the word describing our fight for a better Europe is democracy. And we know that today democracy is under threat, both internally and outside the Union. We see a situation when a European state invades militarily another European state on the ground of questioning political identity of a nation of 44 million inhabitants. We see that Putin war might bring further strengthening of long-term global trends, which pandemic has already exacerbated. Globalization had lifted many out of poverty, but has had a negative impact on inequalities. Globalization has created interdependencies which lead today to the economy of shortage. The way it will work may bring new risks. We see also power-based trade, which ignores multilateral rules. We see in global relations race between democracies and autocratic regimes. This is an existential race where standard setting plays fundamental role. We see efforts to weaken international governance. We see we have reached the carbon peak and must ensure that the economy of shortage will not distort our direction of change. We must be smart in preparing for years of the economy of shortage, a good balance between systemic and infrastructure adjustments. We see efforts of Russia to create a new political order on the European continent, and it is not yet too late, I believe, for designing and implementing a good strategy protecting our values and interests. And the good news is that we also see community and cooperation building efforts, and not only in Europe. Yes, I'm convinced that instead of focusing on criticizing the past, we should focus on the future, even if it sounds trivial. Now, when we attempt to write a new Ventotene, we should concentrate on our shared values and encourage through federalist solutions an increase of European capacity to agree on what are the public goods worthy of pursuing together in the Union. We have a good list of those in the draft Dominic prepared. The tragic situation generated by the Russian leader means for us a chance to give a new meaning to what European integration is. We have two instruments to bring change to Europe. One is the Conference on the Future of Europe, including treaty change, where the only limit, as usual, is political will. And the other is the power of Manifesto. And the new manifesto will be written by federalists, but I do not think you have to be a federalist to sign it. This should be our mission. As federalists, we cannot think of Europe for federalists. It is about Europe by federalists, but for all. Thanks.
Dziękuję, Danuta.
Proszę bardzo. Gracias.
All the best. Thank you. And now I'm going to give the floor to Daniel Freund. He's member of the European Parliament for the Greens, president of the Spinelli Group, and well, coming from Germany, that is a country that is making major steps forward in this moment through a federal way for Europe.
Well, thanks. Thanks a lot for having me, and thanks for initiating this debate. We're in a new era since last week, and I think everything has to be put in a new context. We have seen policies, you just mentioned it, in Germany, also at the European level, that have held for years, some for decades, that we have overcome in the last week. I think what the European Union, what we together have achieved in this last week on standing united, on deciding that for the first time the Union is going to send arms to a third country and into a war zone, that all of a sudden there is solidarity among the member states to take in those fleeing from the war in Ukraine, something that we have battled over for not just the 7 last years, but particularly in those 7 years. So everything is changing. We're integrating quickly, if you want. But the question is this just something in the face of war, or are we making the European Union fit for the future in general? And I think that will be the big question. And I think one thing that Danuta mentioned particularly hit home. It's that struggle between democracy and autocracy. If you think back to the early 90s, Fukuyama, end of history, I think that now seems so far away. And we have a situation not only in Russia, in China. We had a situation just a year ago in the United States, where democracy was very much in peril on that 6th of January last year. And the question is, are we that cornerstone of democracy in the world? And we see that among our ranks, there is those saying there is a different model, there is illiberal democracy, as they call it. And I think that is the big challenge for us. How do we defend democracy in this world, liberal values, our fundamental values, and how far are we willing in the face of those attacking those values with tanks to defend our European way of life, our values, our democracy, our rule of law. I think that's really the challenge that we're facing. In a way, we're lucky that the conference on the future of Europe is already ongoing. So we can use a process that is already underway. And I think we shouldn't be fooled into thinking that because it has gone reasonably well these last few days, that we on most questions did find unity among Europeans. I don't think that is something that's guaranteed from here on out. And I would very much like to make the Union much more capable of reacting in a way not only to this latest crisis, but we have seen since since the Treaty of Lisbon entered into force, we've had a whole series: financial crisis, migration, Brexit, Corona. It is so needed now that we draw the lessons from all of those and adapt the union and its capacity to act to that situation. So Dominic and others have suggested the Ventone Manifesto 2.0. We had a discussion just 2 weeks ago about the Spinelli Manifesto, and in a way, you know, looking back, how after the Second World War, how in the 80s, the ideas that were on the table, we have lost so much time, and at the same time, those ideas, those that remain unfulfilled, they remain so valid today. They are the answers to all the challenges that we have before us. In a way, those answers are already there. And this is not about some weird federalist ideology. It's just that it makes such eminent sense that we work together. If you look at the pure numbers at the moment, I find it so incredibly frustrating. We have 450 million Europeans. We have 150 million Russians. We have a GDP that is more than 10 times larger than that of the Russian Federation. We have combined, taken together as the European Union, the second highest defense spending in the world. And because we have the institutional setup that we have, we're not making use of the huge advantages that we should actually have, and the capacity to defend our interests, our values in the world, because we cannot agree on a proper institutional setting, on doing things together. We rather spend our money on 19 different tanks in the Union rather than saying, you know, I'm not even saying let's do one, but let's agree on maybe a handful of models. Let's spend together, let's work together much more to be in a capacity to deal well, as quickly as we can with the crisis that is ongoing, but definitely be ready for whatever comes next. Thanks.
Thank you. Now I welcome Guy Verhofstadt. Are you ready? Yeah.
Yeah, my apologies, but I was in a meeting of the Conference on the Future of Europe, so I cannot escape there. Yeah.
No. You are welcome here, and I'll give you the floor. As you know, Guy Verhofstadt has been working for the future of Europe for many years. You have been in most of the plots I have participated with.
But not with a big result, apparently.
Oh, no.
Even, not yet. Let's be.
Even you have paid for being a federalist in the past. Yeah. Well, and I do think that you can deliver us an important message on not the conference, on how we proceed with this leap that has got the conference and Europe, I think, in these days.
Yeah, thank you. Some people say the Ventone 2.0, why I support it, because that's then a reason to go to Ventone again. Yeah, true, because I was never in Ventotene, sorry. I went in the first time last year, and I think it was a great experience we did with Mattarella, with Borrell, and so on. I think a great experience. So I was immediately in agreement with Dominic when he proposed Ventotene 2.0, because we need all to go together back to Ventotene. So, and then maybe next year 3.0, 4.0. So we have every year a reason to do that. Yeah, even when they have good wine on Ventotene. Yes, but on Ventotene they have not bad wines, the white ones especially. But that said, and sorry to start like that, but I have a little bit to forget what the last meeting I was in. I think that it is a fantastic moment. I don't think, Dominic, that was the idea to write a Ventotene and saying, yeah, because the Russians. No, it's not that. We already tried to revive the spirit of Ventotene for many years. I think we do it now in a more coherent way, in a constructive way, by writing down this 2.0 manifesto. Yeah, on the right moment, unfortunately, I should say, at the right moment, in the sense that what we are living at our borders for the moment is dramatic. But yeah, at the other hand, if we take the right lessons from that, it will be an enormous opportunity. So, you know, in tragedies have always these two sides. At the one hand, the tragedy, the loss of people, and so on. We have only seen the beginning, in my opinion, of this devastating war. But at the other hand, yeah, it creates an enormous momentum to do what we need to do. And what we need to do is in fact, and what this new manifesto is describing, is exactly what the founding fathers after the Second World War had in mind. Because let's be honest, I'm always saying, imagine a moment that we did in 1954 the Constitution, the von Brantana Constitution at that moment. Imagine a moment that we did the European Defense Community at that moment. What was foreseen? If this bloody, French Parliament didn't had voted down, or Pierre Mendès France had said, look, it's a confidence vote. You have to vote for it. It's the only thing he needed to say. These three words. It's a confidence vote. If you don't vote for the project, then it's the end of the government. And he got the majority. He didn't do that. Because he said, yeah, that's a project of my predecessor. I'm not interested in it. And he was a pro-European. You cannot say that Pierre Mendès France was not a pro-European. But he missed I don't know what, the courage, the guts, the vision. I don't know what, maybe a difficult day, yeah, that day. It can happen for everybody. To say, it's a confidence vote. So, but can you imagine that it was agreed, so, that we got the European Defense Community at that moment? The world would be completely different. Maybe there would not be an Ukrainian-Russian war today. Could be, because the balance would be completely different. We would be responsible for decades for our own security. So how would we do it then in our neighborhood? I think in another way than today. At least we would be fully responsible for it. And other things too. So the parliament existed already in the constitution of 54. So we have to wait for Spinelli and 79 to have it. And so on and so on. So if there is a moment to revive these ideas, it's the moment. It's today. It's the moment to do that. And we have not to wait 5 years, 10 years before the war is over, and then we see what the outcome is, and what it's now, because everything what we need today has been described in that first manifesto, in this manifesto, and in the ideas of the founding fathers. It's not true that the founding fathers said, okay, we do it only a customs union. Oh, we do only, that was not our initial idea. The customs union and the Treaty of Rome was a leftover, because they came together and said, yeah, we have no constitution, we have no defense union, that country and that country doesn't want this and that. What is over? And then the Dutch came and said, we make a customs union. Because it's the representative of the Dutch who was there. We said, yeah, customs union. You didn't talk about that, but that we need. And then it came the single market, and so on, step by step. But you see naturally the weaknesses of it. You see today the weakness of the fact that at one moment you need to go to the end of the exercise. What are we? What we need to be? Yeah, a union. Well, let's make then a real union. And let's make a real, and you call it a federation or you don't call it a federation, that's not the point. The point is that it has to be a union, a democratic political body, and it needs to be working with efficiency based on majority democratic decision making, like every normal political organization is based on that principle. And I think that people see that now. So I have never heard so many people saying, this idea of putting an end to unanimity. So for years, for nearly 2 decades, they have told us, to us federalists, you're always talking about institutions. People are not interested in institutions. That's stupidity to talk about institutions. The policies. And never they ask themselves the question, why we don't have the policies? Maybe because of the bad institutions. So it's bad institutions will make bad policies. That's the reality. And only with good institutions you can also make good policies. So there we are now. And there, hopefully, so it's a good moment to launch it. We can also achieve that in this conference. In the meanwhile, what I hear is that everybody wants now to speed up, to prolong the conference, some to speed up, some to prolong, to deepen the conference. And so what, in my opinion, it's very clear what we need to do. If we have good results in the conference, we go into a convention. That is what we need to do. That's the logic. Until a few days ago, it was impossible to say that. And now everybody thinks that, and some are saying that. So, but I think that also make a huge of sense, and that's also the claim in this Ventone Manifesto 2.0. So thank you, Dominic, to have taken the initiative, yeah, well, we see all, each other back in Ventone on the island to together yeah, look to the results of this. Thank you.
We must be ready to go to Ventotene. Yeah.
First the convention.
First the convention. Yeah. Okay. So
maybe we can have the convention.
with well,
we could do that.
I'm
very much a favor.
I wanted to propose this. You stole my proposal.
No, I'm sure that
You know,
such a stubborn.
To go further in that direction and no boats for 3 or 4 months. They are obliged to have a result. You can only leave the island, like with Spinelli. You can only leave the island when you have a result.
Well, but swimming would be a good exercise. Yeah.
I'm not so sure that if you will put this condition, that would speed up the process.
Yeah.
Because eventually.
Well, I apologize because I have to try to manage this very live assembly. Now I give the floor to you, to Fabio. No, there is a lady for you. Maria Eugenia Rodriguez Palop is a member of the European Parliament, and she belongs to the left group. And now she's going to.
En primer lugar, me gustaría pedir disculpas por no haber podido formar parte de la reunión hoy, ni presencialmente ni online, puesto que estoy fundamentalmente porque va orientado a fortalecer el espacio democrático dentro de la Unión Europea, lo que supone dar más prerrogativas al Parlamento Europeo, que es la sede de la soberanía popular. Intentar que las relaciones entre Parlamento, Comisión y Consejo sean mucho más fluidas, intentar que la ciudadanía tenga mayor y mejor participación en la toma de decisiones, que haya una gobernanza económica y que, por tanto, el elemento democrático también se tenga en consideración a la hora de diseñar los presupuestos a medio y largo plazo de la Unión Europea y, finalmente, que el Estado de Derecho, y esto es algo que yo aprecio especialmente como jurista, que el Estado de Derecho no se considere únicamente aquel que garantiza la separación de poderes o la independencia del Poder Judicial, sino sobre todo y fundamentalmente aquel que se orienta a la protección y garantía de los derechos fundamentales. Precisamente el Parlamento ha apoyado que la condicionalidad de los fondos europeos esté atravesada por esta exigencia y es lo que el Tribunal de Justicia acaba de decretar para algunos gobiernos, como sabéis, dentro de la Unión Europea. Hay algo más, algo que me parece también especialmente interesante, apostar por una regla de mayoría cualificada en el Consejo y eliminar de una vez por todas una regla de la unanimidad que no es democrática, puesto que permite que uno solo vete a todos los demás. Creo que la conferencia sobre el futuro de Europa es una gran oportunidad para ir avanzando en esta dirección y me parece que el manifiesto en este sentido apuntala también una dirección adecuada y apropiada para la Unión Europea.
Gracias, María Eugenia. Yo por lo menos he entendido todo el mensaje. Gracias. Now I'm going to give the floor to Fabio Massimo Castaldo, dear friend and the member of the European Parliament, and non-attached.
Still.
But you are very attached to Europe.
Of course.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's say that sometimes, even without a group, it means that you are embracing the whole Europe somehow, no? So, and of course, I would like, first of all, to pay tribute to my dear friend, Domenic, to have decided to stimulate all of us to give our personal contribution to this idea to revamp, modernize, and strengthen again the message, the values, and the political projects of the Spinelli Manifesto, of the Ventone Manifesto. Why? Because sometimes we are hearing even in the narrative of medias, Spinelli's dream, or the dream of a European Federation. No, this is not a dream. Let us no mistake about that. This is a clear, defined, extremely well-developed political project and agenda that still we have to finalize and to put in place. But of course, as everything, the evolution is bringing every single agenda and political project also to the needs to adapt itself to the change that are emerging in a society. And of course, all the technological evolution is putting in front of us new challenges. All the terrible impact and effect of climate change is putting in front of us new challenges. Geopolitical crisis, as the dramatic one we are experiencing these days, are again pushing us to understand that some ghosts we thought we had already defined. It's okay? Okay. Some ghosts of the past are coming back again and are showing that they are more modern than what we would have expected. And that's why I think that it was so important to carry on this exercise, to try also to bring this message to the new generation, to do not think that is part of simply an age that is already gone. Somehow I can say also that I'm extremely pleased because I'm one of the members of the parliament that is representing the parliament within the works of the conference. And I can tell you that despite the narrative of those one who are putting all the possible negative vision on the conference, saying that that would have been a useless exercise, that the citizens were not prepared to discuss with us about technical and institutional issue. On the contrary, I found the participation, the ideas, and the degree of awareness and knowledge of the citizens extremely high. I would say that somehow I think that some of the colleagues in the European Parliament are not matching with the needs, but not the large majority of the citizens for also the proposal they were carrying on. And in my working group, the one of our external action and dimension, you in the Word, they were the first one to point on the fact that, of course, sticking to the idea to answer to geopolitical crisis with the rule of unanimity is out of history and is always bringing us to take choices that are not at all proportional to the challenge, because of course unanimity means two things, as normally two possible outcomes: to paralyze the decision, or to have a minimum common denominator that it means that is not adequate to give the answer we need. We could have transposed that, of course. We have the parallel, the passerelle clause, but we also know that we have this contradictory paradox of unanimity that has to vote to pass unanimity. It was a perfect, in my opinion, hypocrite deal and solution. It was found to say we are doing a small step forward, but really not now, and knowing that that would not have worked in practice. So I think that this crisis, the fact you see that war came back to Europe with the worst conflict after the end of Second World War, was the second big shower of reality we got after the pandemic. And we also have to understand that if, as many are now claiming for a Europe of defense, well, this is not coming with the present budget and MFF we have. We don't have the means to put in practice the investment we need in crucial technology to foster the interoperability and the cooperation of our armed forces, to start again to have finally a large program starting also from the EDF to have a common joint European procurement. We don't simply have the means with a budget that is just a bit more than 1% of the European GDP. This is ridiculous. And knowing, of course, the I would say the sad show we saw last time in the negotiation in MFF, I think that the first and the most important way to achieve that is to stabilize the emission of common European bonds, exactly as we did for the next generation EU. This is the level of ambition that the citizens are asking to us to show. This is what we were also expressing the ideas on the manifesto. And let me also say that, again, we have to put forward a concrete and effective European agenda on the CFSP and on our approach on external dimension. Why? Because, of course, the situation is asking to us. I would like just to give you a very practical example, the enlargement process. In all these days, everybody's claiming, yes, we have to show a sign of solidarity to Ukraine. And of course, I'm with them claiming that we could recognize to Ukraine, to pay tribute to their courage and the way in which they are standing, not simply for their liberty, but also for our values and our principles, the status of candidate of the to accession of the European Union. This is something that it's really reasonable to understand. But just put yourself in the perception of the Albanian and the Northern Macedonia. If this is going to happen, they will say we are still blocked and stuck. For what? Electoral reason, tactical reason? Well, every vacuum in geopolitics is going to be filled up by somebody else. And this is what happened in the Western Balkans, by Russia, by Turkey, by China, by the Gulf. This is happening now. And we have to move also this process to avoid that people will lose hope in the European integration path, because without these countries, without Ukraine, our project will not be fulfilled. Let me so once more reiterate our commitment to see not simply the enlargement, but the deepening of our integration to all the values and the perspective we put in this document. And I hope that you will be able to analyze that and even to come back to us for any question, any proposals, an idea to enrich, because this is we know that this is a kind of a construction site. Every day we have to add a new brick. Every day we can just study together a possible perspective, better perspective to strengthen it. And let me also say that sometimes this kind of shower of reality, we really need them to understand that without courage, we will never be what and who we want really to be. Thank you so much. And thanks to Dominic and all the friends for this important perspective and job we did together.
Now I'm going to give the floor to Luca Vicentini, the Secretary General of the European Trade Union Confederation, that plays an important role in building Europe.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much to Domenic, first of all, for having, let's say, asked me during a plenary of the conference on the future of Europe to sign off the manifesto and to support this initiative, and I did that with great conviction. And when this initiative was conceived, there was a momentum in the sense that we were coming out from the pandemic crisis and try to rebuild Europe in a different way. But today, well, the momentum is even stronger because we are back to war in Europe after so many years. And the original Ventone Manifesto was conceived during the war. So I think that relaunching now the ideas that were in the Ventotene Manifesto with the new reality that we are facing is really, is really crucial and super important for all of us. Let me tell you that we are, as the trade union movement in Europe, in constant contact with our colleagues in Ukraine. And we had yesterday, by the way, a 3 hours very painful online meeting with them. And the first request from their side is from the European trade union movement, but more in general from Europe, please help us with medicines, food, and also military aid, because we need to defend ourselves, we need to survive, and we need to continue the struggle. But then the second request is, please let the doors open for us to enter Europe. And they are not naive, you know. They perfectly understand that this doesn't mean that tomorrow they will be members of the European Union. But they also tell us that just opening the process, just starting the talks, just giving the sign that there is availability and willingness from the European Union to include them, to talk to them, well, they told us only this will make a difference, because even this will protect us, even more than discussing about NATO membership or fly zone, etc., because NATO membership, fly zone, etc., means having World War III. Entering, or even just talking about entering the European Union, means being part of a peace process, an identity process to be part of the project of the European Union. And also Georgian and Moldovan colleagues were in that meeting, and they told us, please don't do it only for Ukraine. Please consider also us, because we are the next ones in the line in this situation. Georgia was already partially invaded, as you know, by Russia in 2008, and Moldova is the next target. Maybe that after that, the Baltic countries in the crazy mind of Mr. Putin. So this is just to tell you that, of course, we have to be careful. Of course, we have to consider also the expectations of the Balkan countries. Of course, we have to fix also the problems that are still putting obstacles, I mean, to Albania, North Macedonia, and others in that area. But there is a need not to just deal with the nitty-gritties of political balances in the council, you know, and this or that national interest. This is the time really to be ambitious and to, I mean, look at the future and relaunch the idea of a united, peaceful, and democratic European Union. Everybody says that, you know, we become stronger and more united during the crisis. That's true recently, because we remember perfectly what happened in the past, the financial crisis, globalization, you know, the middle age of Mr. Barroso. Those crises divided us, actually. It's just after the pandemic that we had the strength and the willingness and the ambition to be more united and stronger together. The extraordinary measures that we have put in place, the emergency, and then after that, of course, Next Generation EU and all the new things, the new decisions that in few months we were able to take after years and years of just division and fights. Well, all this gives hope. But now, well, this hope has to become reality. And there are three fundamental elements in this manifesto, in this new manifesto, that I want to underline. One is peace, the other one is democracy, and the third one is the social market economy. I don't want to say anything about peace and democracy. I mean, there is no time. But let me tell you something about the social market economy. The social market economy is one of the fundamental principles of the treaties of the European Union, and it's not yet there. We didn't deliver it because we have a market economy, we have a single market, We have an European social model attached to it, but there is no holistic and comprehensive and balanced approach to the social market economy. Now we have the opportunity, after the pandemic, after the war, or during the war, to really redesign our social and economic model for the future. And we have all the tools at disposal to do so, because we have Next Generation EU, we have the Green Deal, we have the European Pillar of Social Rights. There are all the elements to make sure that we can redesign our economic and social model in a proper way, rebuild our social contract in the European Union, and make sure that we can really achieve a social market economy. But to do that, we need radical progressive reforms of our fiscal rules, of our Stability and Growth Pact, about our social model, of course, about our competition law, about our industrial policy. There are many things that have to be changed and redesigned with great ambition if we want to achieve these results. And I think that an initiative like this can really push in the right direction. We have here one of the co-chairs of the conference on the future of Europe. I have to say, the only one that is really co-chairing the conference with some kind of ambition and forward-looking vision. The others are just trying to pull the brake. So we are struggling, as Guy perfectly know, and we are sometimes also pestering Guy, I mean, to try to make sure that some good results can come out from this conference. Yeah, exactly. But, you know, I totally subscribe to conclude what Guy just said, that it's not a matter of going beyond the 9th of May. It's a matter of what we do after the 9th of May. Exactly. Because we have all the conditions with the 4 plenaries that we still have, 4 plenary meetings that we have from now to the end of April, to draw conclusions and to be ambitious and concrete in these conclusions. Then the problem is what these conclusions will do in terms of impact. And then without a convention, without at least a possibility of redesigning the treaties and the architecture of the European Union, well, we will have just eluded the citizens that they have participated in something that doesn't produce any concrete results. So we have really to keep pushing. And I think that a new Ventone Manifesto can be a great, great element for pushing together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Luca, for your precious information about Ukraine. And I'll make a personal comment. When I listen to you, I hear the accent of Jacques Delors. Because no, let me say, Jacques Delors, he was not a doctor of universities. He was a trade union activist from the CFDT, good friends. So, well, thank you. And now we are proceeding to the next panel. I thank you. You know well the Ventone Manifesto. More or less. Well, let's go on.
So thank you very much. No, yes. Thank you much, and thank you very much to Domenech and to the others that gave us the possibility to have this discussion. And I would say a few things in the limits of the time, 5 minutes. 5 minutes. First of all, I would remember to you that the name of the conference is the Conference on the Future of Europe, not on the future of the European Union. And sometimes I think that we entered in the conference thinking on the fact that our aim was only to debate on the future of the European Union. But it's not the case. It's not the fact that the name is the Conference on the Future of Europe. That means the conference concerning the future of our continent. So I'm not so sure that following the discussions in the conference, we were aware about this fact that it was necessary to discuss, to debate, and to think about the future of our continent, and the facts of Ukraine and so on push us in this direction, that is necessary to think about the future of Europe, and not only of the European Union. The Manifesto of Ventone, the first Manifesto of Ventone, thought not only about the future of Europe, but the idea was to make a step towards a European federation, but as a step in the direction of the World Federation. That is written in the Manifesto of Ventone, that it was necessary to build an international order, not only in Europe. Second point, because you wrote in your text that our aim is to build a true federation. A true federation is not a system, an hybrid system as our meetings, part online and part in presence. A hybrid federation which we put together a communitarian method, confederal method, and federalist method. True federation means, for me, at least 5 things. You have different federations in the world, apart the fact that we have also wrong federations, because Russian Federation is a wrong federation, it's not a real federation. But as I think you say that also in the United States, it was the risk to pass from a democracy to a non-democracy. That means even if you have a federation, there is this risk that you can lose the democracy. So if you see the system of federations in the world, there are at least 5 elements that are common. All the federations are not the same, because the United States Federation is different than German and so on. But there are at least 5 elements that are common. First of all, the federations speak with the single European voice in the international affairs. No, in all the federations, they speak with the single European voice. That means our common and security policy. Second, we have in all the federation a federal citizenship, not some of the national citizenships. A federal citizenship that for the moment doesn't exist at European level. Third, we have a federal budget. That is not the case for the moment, because we don't have a federal budget. We have a ridiculous budget. That is not federal budget. Fourth, we have a federal government. That is not the case for the moment. And sixth, in all the federation, because that is the reason of the federation, we protect the human rights. So if we want to build a true federation, we have to apply these 6 elements together, not a part of the elements. We can start with one step in the next 2 years, and a second step, and so on. We have to fight to build a true federation having these 6 elements. That is the idea of the Federal Manifesto in Ventone, and I think that that is the idea of the Manifesto 2.0 of the MONEC. So in this framework, I agree on the fact that now we have to wait the conclusions of the conference on the future of Europe, not on the future of European Union. But then, as you said, we have to think about what we have to do after the 9th of May. Yes, we have the consultation of the citizens. It was a very important thing to consult the citizens, even if it was not a real system democratic, but we can think about it. I was astonished that probably you saw it, that in Le Monde they dedicated 4 pages to the participatory democracy, and no word in these 4 pages were dedicated to the Conference of the Future of Europe. That means that even in France, that when they create the idea of the Conference of Europe, nobody thought about the fact that it was also a conference on the future of Europe. So now there is this next step that we have to make forward after the 9th of May. And our aim for me is the next European elections. You know that the idea of Spinelli was that to build a true federation, we need a constituent assembly, because that is the only democratic way to rebuild a true federation. Because in a constituent assembly, you have all the political cultures, not only the majorities in an intergovernmental conference, and I finish, but all the political culture are in a constituent assembly. So I think that we have to think about this perspective and create a situation and a mobilization in the next 2 years to arrive in the European election to 26th of May 2024 in this direction. And the last element, because Enrico knows very well this experience, I think that in our democracy, the representative democracy is very important. And the representative democracy exists at national and European level. So why don't think about the possibility, as we made in Rome in November 90, before the Maastricht Treaty, to organize during the Spanish presidency in September 2023 assise interparlementaire, as Mitterrand asked before the fall of the Berlin Wall, putting together the members of the national parliaments and the European Parliament to think together about the future of Europe. And I think that could be a very democratic moment to prepare the European elections in 2024 and to prepare a constituent phase that is in the legacy and the momentum and modernity and relevance of the Spinelli Manifesto of Ventone in 41. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pier Virgilio. I support your proposal, not because I am from Madrid, too, but yeah, but I was in the plot of launching the first assise of the first conference. It was the conference of the parliaments, the national parliaments that drafted the Treaty of Maastricht. Yeah. And I do think that it can be a very important moment. And well, I think that Domenic will be in favor too. And we need...
we will put it in the draft.
Yeah, and we need a very active participation of our national parliaments. In this moment, in another, well, after the falling of the Berlin Wall, everybody understood. I do think that we are in a similar situation, more serious. We must try. And now I'm going to give the floor to Frédéric Vallier, Vice President of the European Movement International.
Thank you.
I support you.
Thank you, President.
As a former president of the International European Movement, I'm in favor. So
thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, President. And first of all, let me apologize for Eva Medel, our president, who wanted to be with you this evening, but was unable to join. And she asked me to represent EMI, although we are a lot of members of EMI here, I see. No, let me first say that the European Union is not a single market. It is a single market, but it's not the aim of it. And I very much share what Guy Verhofstadt said earlier. We are political union. We are political body. And this is what events like the situation we are living with Ukraine is reminding us. Beyond the differences, beyond the discussions that we can have, and there are many discussions, obviously, between countries, between governments in the last period, we are united because we believe in democracy, we believe in liberty, in freedom, and this is what should always be kept in our minds. And when we think of the Ventone Manifesto, and I think I participated 10 years ago in the celebration of the Ventone Manifesto in Ventone, I remember. That was very nice. But what is striking is that this manifesto, of course, was written during the Second World War by people who were deprived of their freedom. And it seems like every step we take in the integration of Europe, we take it through crisis and terrible events. And my hope is that we could build this federation of values, let's call it like this, not only when we are confronted to something that is hitting us so badly, but that we can really sit around the table. And this is kind of the aim of the Conference on the Future of Europe, of course. But it should be a continuous process. Citizens of Europe, also national parliamentarians, European Parliament, and everyone should be involved in thinking what we are doing together and why we are doing it. And this is very important for us, that this process of designing the future of Europe is not just a moment, but it's a continuation. And it cannot be only done between national parliaments, I'm sorry to say that, but it has also to include local governments, and I take my former hat as former Secretary General of CMR, so local governments, but also stakeholders like the unions, the civil society, because this is getting much further than just the institutional patterns. Of course, this is crucial, but it's also on what we share together. And why, for example, can't we give more support to our Ukrainian brothers and sisters? It's not only because of institutional problem, it's because we haven't thought before of how to ensure protection to our fellow democracies in Europe and even outside Europe. And of course, I'm very much in agreement with what my predecessor on that chair was saying. We need to have strong elements to build our case towards the others. And for example, it's unbelievable that Europe did not participate in the discussions with the Americans and the Russians about Ukraine. And we can, of course, regret it, but this is not, this is a reality that we have to face. We have to be strong. We have to be strong for our citizens, for our countries, but we have to be strong for the world. And I think what the text is mentioning is very important in what visions Europe has on problems like climate change, like a crisis, like inequalities around the world. Because if Europe is not leading on these points, no one will do it. It's not the Chinese or the Russians who are going to suddenly think, oh, let's talk about inequalities in the world. So that's our role. And that's our role for the future years, for the future generation. And if we are not strong together, if we don't build that governance that gives confidence to our people, we will not be able to do that. And always remember that, of course, every change has to be made with the support of the citizens and of the people. The first element of European citizenship is the agreement we have with the project, the agreement we have with the vision that the leaders can give, and that is what we have to build, and this is our responsibility. Thank you.
Now, I am going to give the floor, remotely, to a very good, very good friend, Monica Frasoni. Are you ready? Yeah. Former
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah. We are ready and willing to hear you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Yes. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation, although I really do believe that, as always happens, we do need a gender budget in Europe, and this is an ongoing problem that has been there for a long time. And I hope that with new energy and new blood coming also to this discussion, we will be able also to involve more people also under a gender point of view. Now, I would like to thank very much Dominic for this initiative, because I really do believe that it is very important to recenter our priorities and to finish a business that is not finished since 1941 or even, of course, much before. I also believe that we cannot be content in all going to Ventotene. Giefer also said that he really wants to go, fine, good, but he's the president of one of the presidents of the Conference on the Future of Europe, and I hope that that's not the only mission that he has or that he feels when talking about a new Ventotene Manifesto or a new initiative on the Ventotene Manifesto. And I believe that what we need now is certainly to go to Ventotene and to present this text, but we need an initiative from the European Parliament, which is comparable to the one that Spinelli took, unfortunately, many decades after the Manifesto of Ventotene, which is a treaty on the future on the European Union. And I believe that if we don't have a strong political and institutional initiative from the European Parliament, willing to intervene in the democratic reform of the European Union, the idea of having a convention will be completely useless. I know that a lot of people don't agree with me, because the convention is bound to the unanimity vote, and it is bound to a method of reform which will not work. So I am of the opinion that we have to take stock from the Conference of the Future of Europe that risks very much to be forgotten immediately after the 9th of May. And the only one that can take up what the Conference on the Future of Europe, and I fully agree with Virgilio, the Conference of the Future of Europe is not only the conference, above all today, is not only the Conference on the Future of the European Union. We really need to make sure that the European Union does not find itself again in the situation in which it is today, that was not able to stop the war. Now, you can tell me it is not the fault of the European Union if Putin became mad. I fully agree. But I was in the European Parliament, even not as a member of the European Parliament, when Putin started to become mad. And whether we like it or not, we were lenient on the issue of human rights in Chechnya. We were lenient as European Union in order to keep our economic interests, also in terms of dependence from the gas, which is today in countries like Italy, for example, completely delaying the green transition that we have to do, whether we like it or not, at the same time as creating a common security at the European Union level, because whether we like it or not, today the green transition is very much a security question. So what I would like to see from your side, Dominic, and from the other members of the European Parliament which are here, including Mr. Verhofstadt, is to make sure that once they accept, because as far as I understand, we are going towards a direction of accepting that the Conference on the Future of Europe finishes, is that the European Parliament takes the initiative, and I hope that my group will be very much on the forefront of this, takes the initiative of going on with the issue of a democratic reform of the EU in order to make sure that we get rid of the unanimity vote, which is the cancer of the European Union, and which is what is creating today a situation in which basically everybody is doing what they like. We don't have a migration policy. Since 2017, we know that there is a blockage on the reform of the Dublin rules. And even the Green Deal is today in great danger because the European Commission only considers themselves as responsibles, not towards the people, not towards those who said what they want to see, that is to say a strong Green Deal in the Conference of the Future of Europe, but only against the government, only in relation to the government. So I repeat, and I finish here, and I thank you very much for having given me the floor. Unless the Parliament takes an initiative, which is basically like the one of the Treaty of European Union, which followed up, even if after many decades, that I hope we will not have to wait for the Ventone. Also the effort that Dominic and we are all doing around his proposal will be not useful unless, of course, we consider useful only to go for a nice week in Ventone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Monica. Always informed. And now I'm going to give the floor to Antonio Argenziano, who is the president of the Young European Federalists. So,
thank you very much. I thought that my intervention would have been a bit angry, but to overcome Monica is difficult. So actually, when I think about the manifesto, most of the people know when you think about the manifesto, a lot of you have in mind the final sentence: "The road to pursue is not easy nor safe, but it must be pursued, and it will be." But to be honest, the sentence that inspired me the most reading the manifesto are the first sentences. When in the manifesto, Spinelli and Rossi talks about the crisis of the modern civilization. And it inspired me as a young person, because we are living this crisis now. Because all that people under 35, even 40 experienced is just crisis in the last 20 years, at least. And already in the manifesto, it was written that the European civilization is founded on the principle of liberty. And together with liberty are also, and are explained also in the manifesto, all the principles that also in what Domenech prepared in the redraft. And they were mentioned by Luca Vicentini before. So it's democracy, it's peace, it's the social market, it's equality. These are the principles that make the European model the European model. And the European model is different from not only from the Chinese model, it's also different from the United States model. And that principle was in crisis. It was in crisis because of a Europe divided in nation states. And that division took Europe to nationalism, totalitarianism, to war. And we are going through this mechanism once again now, because we are experiencing exactly this moment. Another Italian thinker, Gramsci, would have called this crisis an interregnum, a sort of swamp the European Union is now, because the old Europe of the nation states is delaying its death because of small step by small step. And the new Europe, the federal Europe, is not born yet. And in this interregnum, the biggest horror happens, and we are facing them. We are now used to have nationalist organizations, nationalist parties around us. Because this happened. we saw it happening. Also, Monica said, we saw how crazy Putin and all the kind of things were. We had an idea where it was going because it's not the first time. And we experienced all this crisis. We experienced a lot. We missed a lot of opportunities as European Union. We had the euro, but we were not courageous enough to have a govern to make economic policy decision. And we had the crisis, a global crisis. And we had another crisis, and after the pandemic, we had to come out with this idea of the Next Generation EU to invest on the future. Otherwise, there was no future for the European Union. We had the enlargement at the beginning of the millennium, but we lost the opportunity to build also a foreign affairs, a defense union. We got stuck with these veto rights, and these veto rights make Europe weak. And that's why Putin could make his bet and said the European Union will be not strong enough to react, and I can do whatever I want with Ukraine, as I tried already to do in 2014. So if you, I'm convinced that with a real political union, Ukraine wouldn't have happened. And now the war got to Europe again. And it's not the first time actually since the Second World War, because also the Balkan War happened in the meantime. Now it's easy to forget, and we are still actually dealing with the enlargement also in the Western Balkans, and new nationalism are rising also there. That's the next problem we're going to face if we don't tackle it, because we pay the consequences for our weak decisions, for our compromises. And now people in Ukraine are dying to defend their home, but also to defend this principle of freedom that Europe, freedom, peace, and etc. that Europe stands for. And so we need to step up. And I agree. The only way to step up is also institutionally. For example, we as Jeff Europe just launched a couple of days ago a petition calling for actually accepting this idea of a membership status for Ukraine, but also for membership status for Moldova and from Georgia. And actually Georgia now is applying, and Moldova, I guess, is going to as well, because this has to be, we need to tackle with all these issues. We cannot delay, because problems are coming to us at certain point. But talking for real about enlargement, about having the ability to face Putin and etc. It's not important. It means that we also need to reform the European Union before, because it doesn't make any sense to say and to complain about the right of vetoes and then to have more vetoes in the European Union. It doesn't make any sense. And also because European Union as it is now is not the kind of community we would like to welcome Ukrainian people, people from Moldova, from Georgia, people from the Western Balkans. That's why these two things has to be connected. So when we say we stand with Ukraine, we need also to say we stand with a political Europe. We stand with a Europe that has a constitution. We stand with something that has to come out from the conference. And Mr. Verhofstadt said very clearly even before, people, young people also are interested in institutional reforms, because they means also better policies. It's not a case that on the digital platform for the Conference of the Future of Europe, the most supported idea was called Stronger Together, a Democratic European Federation. So let's get to an end of this conference and let's start a process to get to this European Federation. And it's up to the Parliament. I agree with Monica. It has to be up to the Parliament, because the Parliament is the one that represents for real the European citizens. Up to the Parliaments, maybe also with the support of their national parliaments, to start this process of reform. And all the people that are in the squares now going against the war, I think will be ready to follow this kind of bold initiative, because what we need now is not weak steps, but bold initiatives. And it's not going to be easy. And for this time, it's not either going to be safe, because we are facing also a nuclear threat here. So the words with which Spinelli and Rossi closed the manifesto are now less rhetorical than it could sound until a few days ago. But this has to be done, otherwise the whole Europe that we know will not exist anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we are respecting the timetable, but our friend Frederic wants to make a comment on Ukraine. But...
Yes, no, I just wanted to remind something. In 1940, the United Kingdom offered France to join in a federation, and France refused very stupidly. And we know what happened just after. France was invaded by the Germans. So I just want to say that if we have something to do, is to give a political shelter to Ukraine and Moldova and Georgia, but also probably to others. And that's by making Ukraine join the European Union just now.
Thank you. Now
Sorry, Enrique. If I may make a comment to what Frederic said.
Well,
I just one phrase. I just want to one phrase.
Yeah. Well,
one phrase, and that is that, Frederic, it is very nice to be candidate to something. If we go on like this and we don't reform the EU, Ukraine will have nothing to be a member of.
Monica, there are already 4 sentences. Thank you.
Not really, 2.
Well, now I have been invited to draw conclusions and to make the closure. Only a conclusion is we have been speaking about crisis. Crisis is a Greek word that comes from the verb krinein, and it means to make decisions. And Jean Monnet said rightly that the European Union will be built through crisis. Yeah. Well, there are some crises that can make this leap forward that we are looking for. Well, I think that we are in a very decisive moment, but there is a point. Is Europeans, we have been inventing and trying all kinds of political systems, empires, dictatorships, absolute monarchies. This was a permanent war. We have understood, and we are building the European Union. Well, let's go forward. And as Domenic said at the beginning, we have a draft of a new federal Manifesto of Ventone 2.0. Well, now the floor is yours, to everybody, to debate and to improve and to update it. So you are invited. I want to thank you for the assistance of and your interest in this meeting. And Domenic asked me to invite you to drinks, and buffet will be served.